Welcome to the weekly wrap. A few things to run through. The truck doors for our client. We've gone and done a dry fit, and they're fitted fairly well. We've drilled the holes for the window winder and the door opener. The curvature in the panel was slightly over shaped, and I think in the vacuum seal, I think there's probably that's so strong it's sort of sucked the door in and created a bit more shape in these panels. And these are having like a threaded nut that gets riveted into the door, and then a bolt, a decorative bolt head comes through and screws into that. So it's quite a strong connection. So I think when you pull it in with your hands, the shape worked. But the issue that we'd overlooked was the handles and the door handle and the window winder to fit onto the original spigot. It has like a little spring washer cover, and there's a pin that slides through, and that spring washer or the spring cover plate needs to be pushed back to access the pin connection point. So it's meant this has had to come back to either we had to adapt either the spigot length or the handle connection, or get this back to the close to the original thickness. So the original thickness was around the 4mm. So what we've done is we've routed the backs. So we've done perimeter routing all the way back in. We've just now got to smooth this up and then put some coatings on. And then this is then ready to take back and fit. So we've done that to both panels. So we'll put a coating layer on this tonight, and then we'll finish more of this off tomorrow, and then that'll be ready to have its final fit. So that's coming along, and pretty excited, and they've progressed on lots of other aspects of the truck too. So and I think they're happy for us to sort of showcase the truck refurb and show these panels in their finished state. So that's exciting. The Sydney job, we've got these Japanese sort of scarf joints that we're doing with all the curved facing on the bench. So these are being made up at the moment. So you've got some longer and shorter sections with that scarf joint, and then these are all being cut on the bandsaw. The bandsawed finish, and we've got to then obviously get the final shapes shaped up and dressed and finished. And then there's a rebated edge that then sits over the ply base, and then we've got the splayed timber that runs around. So that's all coming together. There's some aspects here, and they're all coming together. There are the Sydney templates. They keep following us around. That's the Sydney kicker. So we've got the facing with the black and ash on it, and just some sort of base structure. Obviously gets plain and fitted to the floor. This is our black and ash sections for the bench. So we've got it's a 150 wide, and we're cutting our curves out of that, and then they'll be docked up and split in half, and we'll be doing the splayed sections that feed around on the main bench. The table tennis table is coming along. We've got final coating going on there at the moment, so that's had another coat on tonight. It's still wet and drying, but the brass inlay is looking quite nice. We did look at the polished brass inlay, where you don't have any markings in it and it's polished out. And my preference is actually we've got an orbital sanding mark on there, which just softens the gloss level and gives it a really nice effect. I think true woodworkers probably would perhaps prefer a polished, highly polished piece. But I think yeah, the different samples we did, that was certainly my preference. It's much more subtle and natural look of the brass. So that's coming together. We've got some nets to show you next door. These are the legs upside down, but they're ready to go on. Net's now done, which is exciting, and you know, we've just got final coats, and then we're ready to do our beach promenade inaugural game. So that's coming up. Some more curved laminating, bending work. Now this is our nets. So this is super exciting. We've made these bronze nets. So this one, you know, got yellow stitching. You know, this has been a little journey. We've ended up going to Leffler's Leather. You know, I think it's like a 93-year-old company founded in Melbourne, and we've actually done a little story on those guys, and that's coming as a separate video. But beautiful leather, and you know, went and chose our hide, and then we've cut that up and met up with a friend, Dan, who's a car trimmer and upholsterer, and had a whole lifelong experience with this sort of work. So we're doing a little video on that too, his story, and we had a lot of fun. Had a day playing with all this and playing with different stitch types and lengths and colours. So that's yeah, some beautiful work. So this is a double stitch with alternated sides, played around with the stitch length. There's a little spigot pocket in the end, and then these are the ends of the net covers, so that'll sit, you know, on the end here. And I might just show you on the actual table how that looks. I know it's hasn't dried properly, but it's almost there. So that'll sit like this. I think maybe coming from the other side, but and the timbers, obviously these timbers have got to be shortened, but that look gets clamped on, and that's the net coming through. So you know, quite nice detailing. That's a plain net where we've left the bronze mesh straight. And then we've done a pleated version, which you can, you know, you get a bit more light, play on light on that too as you come along. But that's like a little, it's still a straight sewing on the top, but it's like a little pleated version of the net. So we've got the two options there to play with. These are some samples that we did with, you know, stitch lengths and types. So we had a bit of fun with that, and then, you know, again on here, you know, get some close-ups of that, but just stitch, you know, again stitch spacings and types. So that, very interesting, a lot of fun, and yeah, it'd be nice to do a bit more leather work and emphasize that in some of our projects. And the video on Leffler's is fascinating. You know, it's like company started, I think it was 1943. Henry Leffler, and you know, he started out of the boot of his car, with you know, supporting the shoe industry, and then Richard, his son, in later years, you know, was involved in the business, and he led the way with a lot of leather dyes and you know, other products that they've, you know, developed in the industry, and then we met with Paul Guyett. Keep forgetting Paul's surname, but Paul Guyett, and he gave us a lot of his time, and we walked around and did a really nice look at the products and the industries they support, and his story, so, and the Leffler story. So you know, it's quite interesting, quite an interesting delve into, you know, the leather industry and their business. So I think, you know, if that sounds interesting, there's a video on that, and then Dan's story with the upholstering. You know, he's a motor trimmer, did his apprenticeship as a motor trimmer, and then, you know, he's been involved in upholstery and lots of other aspects of sort of work over time, and he's now got a business where they're primarily doing shade sails, but industrial sewing machines and lots of interesting machinery. So it was a real privilege to spend some time with him and delve into his trade and hear his story. And I think it's inspiring to then jump in and start doing a bit more of this ourselves. And it's always nice to learn new skills and try new things and learn more about machinery. So that's exciting. Sydney projects coming along. That's obviously the bench template. That's our line through on the stone. The rear joinery there, if we maybe come around the other end, come around the other side. But you can see that end cabinet here has got cutouts in the back of it, and that's been modified and set up for the climate control system that's going in there. And that unit sits in there. There's all these doors sit on the front with like a light pelmet in between each one, and the end one here will have fixed 3 panels. So the supply air is pushing out through the front 3 panels, and then on here we've got like a 20mm shadow to the rock line. So the whole back of the joinery becomes a plenum box and pulls air back through through the unit and reconditions it and back out into the room. So that's coming together. We've got a 4-in-1 zip, a nice machine, an integrated fridge. We've got drawers. So quite an array here. There's an undermount sink. So that's coming along nicely. These are our pelmets for our side display. So they're the neon flex. So they're getting glued in at the moment. And then we've got little timber sections that are getting glued in at the end. As sort of final stops to the rebate, they'll get dressed down and finished. And then they sit in just above the bottle, so that'll all get beautifully subtly lit. So that's all coming along too. And I think the ikebana window is now installed. It was sitting over there. It's no longer. It's on site and installed. So the final plastering work's happening there at the moment, and there's painting. But we did some video of that too going in, and that the gravel's in, and we took a flower or a cutting from the tree out the front with us. So that was left on full display when we left. So I think the clients have enjoyed that addition, and they're just doing some final touches up there with plaster and paint. So we'll get back there and do some video of that in due course. But I think that's probably the wrap for this week, and we'll keep updated. The pod's back from the home show. There's some video on that too, on the journey in and the journey back. Some pretty interesting skill and engineering trucks and trays and hydraulic lifters to get that on the truck and off. So again, that was we did some drone footage of that over the top, leaving and setting up. So that'll come too as a separate video. It's worth having a look at that one, and then we'll be back with more. But thanks for watching, and that's the wrap. Thank you.